I now give the floor to India. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving me the floor. I also thank the speakers today for their very insightful and informative briefings. Terrorism has remained one of the most serious threats to international peace and security. The overall threat of terrorism has only been growing, with terrorist groups, particularly in South Asia and other parts of Asia and Africa, continuing to enhance their influence and expanding into new areas. Over past few years, terrorist groups have been adapting to the use of new technologies. They have been using internet and social media to disseminate their propaganda. COVID-19 pandemic has provided a conducive environment for undertaking such activities by these terrorist groups. Terrorist entities have also capitalized on COVID and developed negative and regressive narratives to entice, radicalize, and recruit vulnerable individuals. Terrorists exploit both online and traditional media to disseminate their hateful narratives. In South Asia, we have witnessed that UN-listed organizations such as Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed have been masqueraded as healthcare providers offering advice on hygiene, building quarantine centers, and enforcing lockdowns in order to gain loyalty of people and access to a new pool of recruits. These terror groups have also exhorted supporters to target security forces and health workers. They have been using traditional media such as newspapers and visual media for hateful content and calling for recruitment and charity for terror outfits. In this regard, I would like to reiterate the collective approach and expectation of the international community to the situation in Afghanistan that has been outlined in UN Resolution 2593, which demands unequivocally that Afghan soil should not be used for sheltering, training, planning, or financing of terrorist acts. Terrorists have been able to exploit these innovative methods with tacit support of some member states. We would like to reiterate our call to such member states to stop providing support to such terror outfits, curb the activities of these outfits, and fulfill their international obligation to combat terrorism in all its forms and manifestations. Mr. Chair, in past few years, the technological innovations have enabled more complex encryption-based messaging services, more anonymous online presence, and almost traceless financial transactions, which have greatly enhanced the privacy and security of the users of these technologies. However, technology is a dual-edged sword. It can be boon or a bane based on who uses them and what are their intentions. And here we see a greater role for the private sector. This is what we mean when we call for a whole-of-society approach. We need greater trust and collaboration between governments and private sectors to ensure that terrorists are not able to use internet, social media, or encryption-based services to disseminate their hateful agenda. Such a partnership is essential if we are to build a society free of terror. We cannot afford to work in silos. What we also need is to build effective counter-terrorism narratives, bringing out stories of victims of terrorism, and we believe that the civil society organizations can play a major role in crafting and disseminating these narratives to counter the terrorist narratives. I thank you, Mr. Chair.